Glad to join everyone here. We're going to spend the next 20 minutes or so with some Q&A around Cisco Umbrella. So we'll go ahead and get into that right now, and you can see my screen. So by way of introduction, my name is Rohit Sawhney. I am a product manager at in the cloud security team within Cisco, talking to you out of the Bay Area. And despite what you might be reading, people are not all leaving the Bay Area. It is nice here. It's a wonderful place to be, although I grew up in the East Coast in New York. And so I would like to talk to you about Cisco Umbrella and securing cloud adoption. And as you go through this presentation with me, I'd like you to think about a few different things here. As you can see, we'll talk about trends, we'll talk about applications and security, and I'll focus our case studies around financial services and companies that we work with, co-ops, credit unions, mid-market and enterprise customers, and the challenges that they're facing. And I'd like you to think about within your organization, what is the use of SaaS applications? Is it prolific today? Are your remote and branch offices moving to direct internet access? Are you considering software-defined wide area networks to enable that direct internet access transformation? And how are you managing to keep it all secure with limited staffs? And are you looking for an easier way? So hopefully we'll cover those things, and I will touch on the sort of challenges that we hear from our financial services customers and what that means and how we can help perhaps solve that for you. So let's start with this. A lot of things have fundamentally changed, just like Ron was mentioning. The world continues to change here, but there's some things that haven't changed as much because they were already changing prior to January or March. As much as we like to talk about it, there was a network transformation already taking place. And perhaps you yourselves as leaders in financial services are revisiting how your security architecture looks. So what was happening is long before the global pandemic, the balance in terms of internet traffic or internal traffic was shifting. It was actually being flipped. And perhaps this is flipped forever, where you're seeing an exceeding amount of internet traffic as compared to internal traffic. Why does this matter? Well, backhauling traffic to your corporate headquarter environment doesn't make sense for a lot of different reasons, but there are two reasons that come out on top. One is cost, and the other is performance. So let's take a look at what that really means. We go back to actually March, where a lot of things changed for us this year, and this great migration in remote workers. And what's interesting here is from a Cisco Umbrella and cloud security perspective, we look at this with data. So I'll explain this in a few moments here where we're talking about DNS security, but suffice it to say, we have access to a lot of information, these DNS requests. In fact, we're up to about 240 billion DNS requests per day across 100 million users in 160 different countries. So I mentioned this because we actually looked at our Cisco Umbrella DNS servers and the traffic running through those servers to see where it was coming from, to give us a snapshot of internet activity. And we bucketed that into two different buckets: distinct IP addresses that were sorted into remote and office groupings. And what we saw, and this is probably very analogous to what you were seeing, is this trend, this great migration of total IPs that just doubled in the span of 1 month here in March, right? So in mid-March, you can see a marked increase in remote connections. And at this time, I have to imagine, just like we were, a lot of you were scrambling double time to set up remote workers. You know, that potential spread was very thin, but at the same time, this gave attackers a new playground, and this is why we talk about it. So let's talk about what that looked like. We saw a lot of phishing attacks, COVID domains identified as malicious. So what you see here on the y-axis is percentage of blocked domains. Domains blocked as malicious crossed that 50% mark and even went as high as 75%, as you can see here, peaking in April, coming down, but steadily still going up. This matters because there's a lot of threats that are still out there affecting our colleagues, our workers. And this is something that is always top of mind. It's always been an issue, but it was increasing an issue where you saw this 71x increase just between January 1st, 2020 through to September 7th, 2020. That's huge growth. And there's really no signs of it slowing down. So companies of all sizes have been impacted, but however, large organizations probably have been impacted the most given the huge spikes in DNS volume that we have noticed starting in around early July. Certainly financial services is not immune to this by any means. You know this better than myself. You have the money, you have the data. There's a lot of PII here that is very attractive to attackers, and that is always top of mind. North America is a key target, as you can imagine, and you can see the spread of malicious COVID traffic across the world, as was captured by us when we take a look at this. So what is our new reality? Our new reality is a few different things that you can see here. Applications have moved to the cloud. Along with that is data, infrastructure, and user identities, right? So because of the drive towards SaaS applications, and if I'm an example of this just myself, being a product manager in the Bay Area, having worked in this industry in Silicon Valley for over 20 years, the amount of times that I can easily, without going into VPN, get work done with direct internet access, with SaaS applications like building product specs to flow diagrams, to just working on chat applications with my colleagues and brainstorming is huge. And many people are doing this. Why does this matter? Well, there's a risk here. The risk is that users like myself, and I'll use myself as an example, can install and use applications on our own without proper vetting from IT. Being remote now, even easier, right? You don't need that permission, but that is a risk because users have unprecedented access to be able to access, create, and share information. And that ultimately can lead to access scopes, installing the wrong information, even things like tenant controls, where you kind of confuse the difference between personal applications and corporate applications based on login and private data. In addition to that, we have networks that are also transforming in terms of SD-WAN technology, right? So you have software-defined wide area networks, and due to the increased use of cloud, many of these branch offices are transforming with the shift to SD-WAN. Combine that with more mobile workforces, more work happening off network, less of a use for VPN. So what this ultimately leads to is a gap in visibility and protection for your users. And as you know, attackers are not sitting by ever, right? They're looking to pounce, they're looking to take advantage. And it's a very, very critical time to have visibility into the cloud applications across all your internet traffic, including those endpoints, which may be on or off the network. So we'll talk a little bit about that. A lot of statistics here, but one thing I want to focus on, branch offices adoption to direct internet access, as we talked about. MPLS, backhauling traffic, is really expensive, and broadband internet is cheap. So many organizations, perhaps like yourselves, are re-architecting their network to use MPLS for only critical applications. Perhaps you're thinking about voice and video, once again, very prevalent in this world with remote access, and connecting directly to internet for everything else. But you need a way to secure your branch edge and cloud edge. That is really where the activity is taking place more and more. So we're seeing that with those networks that are being decentralized, users and applications adopting to the cloud, and all the risks that I talked about earlier. So let's talk a little bit about the solution, then we'll get into the case studies of how financial service customers are using our solutions. The Cisco solution is Cisco Umbrella. So let's talk about what that means. This is a multifunction security solution. At the heart of it, it's DNS layer security, but on top of that, there is cloud delivered firewall, secure web gateway technology, and cloud access security broker that all come together. It gives you a lot of flexibility in the Cisco secure platform, where you can start with DNS, you can add proxy capabilities, you can add granular IP controls, of course, ports and protocols with cloud delivered firewall. You can scan and monitor specific applications for PII and PHI and remediations through CASB technology. These are all noted here. And ultimately, you can bring it all together with something called SecureX, which is available to all of our customers as through their subscriptions, which really connects the data across all your Cisco security portfolio and third-party tools to enable automation, unify that visibility, and ultimately strengthen your security. So at the heart of it, I mentioned DNS, domain name system technology. For those who aren't familiar, this is really the phone book to the internet. Every single domain you type in Google, Cisco.com maps to an IP address. Before any sort of file connection or file execution or IP connection, DNS is at the heart of that transaction. It's a protocol, and it's very easy to deploy and simple to manage. And we make that available to you as part of our suite of solutions. So now let's shift over to how our customers are using the solution and the successes that they've had, but also the challenges that they're facing and continue to face. The first example I want to point out is Farm Credit Mid-America. this, as you can see, is a mid-market customer, I would say. They're headquartered in the heart of America, Louisville, Kentucky, and they have about 1,300 employees across 80 retail locations. So why this is important is it's a customer-owned co-op, and they ultimately provide loans and crop insurance to farmers in those rural communities like Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana, Ohio. This $25 billion of, the focus of this $25 billion financial institution is really securing the future of rural communities and agriculture. As their security engineer had told us, they're helping farmers who feed America. So very important work, especially at this time when a lot of us are not going out there and we're relying on folks like this. I know being in California, Central Valley here is very key to our fruits and vegetables, and we feed a lot of the country. And it is very important, as many of us are not going out to restaurants as much. So as a result of that, this organization dealt with some issues. They have 80 retail locations, and they faced internet-based threats. As the pandemic struck, they were accelerating their support for employees who were working from home. And what the security engineer told us, he said, in a web-centric world, in a work-from-home world, the threats are web-based. Therefore, the controls also needed to be largely web-based. So this is why they looked at the Cisco umbrella solution. What did they end up doing? And this is the one what really shocked me when I took a look at this. I almost did a double take. I said, what? They had an increase in 799% through security blocks, and that is actually true. It wasn't 79%, it was almost 800% increase in security blocks. This was, mind you, in a 30-day period. What they saw was even larger increase in phishing blocks. They actually had 2,000 plus malware requests blocked in 24 hours. So this is, with the Cisco umbrella solution, all these requests that previously would have come through were now being blocked. In addition to that, they actually leveraged the Cisco portfolio beyond DNS layer security. So they used the secure web gateway technology, which allowed Farm Credit to block nearly 800 applications. So specifically, they were blocking specific file types just through a few clicks to protect sensitive data from being shared. Things like hidden threats from decrypting HTTPS traffic to security policies that they were setting up. So this was enabling them to protect their customers who were working from home. It blocked a lot of these threats that were happening. It reduced their alerts, and ultimately this led to a lot of value for this particular mid-market customer. Let's take a look at another example here. This is Access Financial. This is one, by the way, all of these are available on our Cisco website. I'll point you to them towards the end here, but there's a bunch of these case studies that are there off of umbrella.cisco.com. And I think there's a lot of learning to be had from this. This particular organization is actually headquartered out of Cincinnati, Ohio. So once again, a middle America financial institution with 2,600 users, so slightly a little bit more than Farm Credit. But what I found very fascinating and interesting about this is they employed not only the Cisco umbrella solution, but also advanced malware protection. And so with their 1,000 retail locations across the US, the thing that Access had to deal with was the vulnerability to malicious activity. I think what they found, and they told us, was that they really were concerned about handling their customers' PII. So we talked about this earlier, the social security numbers, the other sensitive credit data. Their primary focus was on consumer lending, and they wanted to make sure that they were not an attractive target for malware, ransomware, phishing, and other threats. So spurred by an uptick in spear phishing attempts, just like we talked about earlier with the COVID phishing attempts, they had to consider solutions. They had to move beyond standard products that only react to malware as it enters the network. That reactive versus preventative approach is very huge here. And so they were looking to replace not only their proxy solution, but to be very proactive. Ultimately, they settled on our Cisco umbrella solution and advanced malware protection. And what this really brought them at the end of the day is recaptured time and peace of mind. So Joe Hurst, who you see here, and also Tony Hines were folks that we interviewed, and they said the combination of Umbrella and AMP really led to a sudden and significant drop in threats and time spent on remediation. In fact, to the point where what they used to do, that used to take them several days, now only took about 10 minutes to remediate. So they had that visibility in the threats, and they were able to remediate that much quicker than they were in the past. in addition to the other impact bullet items that you see here on the bottom left. Finally, another example, and this is a large enterprise customer, Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank is a huge customer of ours. We've collaborated a lot with them, and you can see that they were using not only Cisco Umbrella, but also the Investigate product. This I haven't really spoken about, but is a live threat intelligence product that is available as part of our portfolio. It allows you to look up domains, look at records, the whois record, the time to live, and investigate why it may have been malicious, including feeds from our security engines like Talos and web reputation scores, etc. Suffice it to say that there's a partnership that is developed with a bank like this. I will tell you, being the owner of the DNS security roadmap within Cisco, there's a lot of collaboration roadmap items that we've worked on, things like DNS over HTTPS and DNSSEC security extensions have been influenced by customers like this that are on the leading edge of security that want to partner with us. And so that is something I'll leave with you, is that beyond even just the leveraging of our solution to block threats, we really look at the engagement with our customers, especially financial services customers, as a partnership, because many of them are on the leading edge of security and threats, and we have an ability to learn from them. So as I wind down the presentation here and take any Q&A, I want to leave you with a few different things. Umbrella is the easiest way to protect your users. It's delivered completely in the cloud, no hardware to install, no software. Because we use domain name system or DNS, it's the primary mechanism to get traffic to our platform. You forward your DNS to us. It's as simple as effectively pointing your DNS from your internal DNS or DHCP servers to the Umbrella global network. Whether you're using Cisco routers or not, there are hardware integrations there. There's integrations with Cisco Meraki MR for wireless access points, like customers use in guest Wi-Fi locations, to MX for the firewall, to wireless LAN controllers. And there's on and off network protection as well. We touched on this very briefly, but you could be one of the 180 million users of AnyConnect for VPN. If not, you're using another VPN client, no big deal. We have a lightweight standalone agent that can be used to be able to protect your off-network users. We have a Chromebook integration, which is being very much used in our EDU spaces, especially with a lot of kids at home learning off of Zoom and other technologies. Chromebook has been huge in terms of deployments and protecting those users. And finally, off-network mobile protection is there through the Cisco Security Connector app, whether it be iOS or Android. So with that, I encourage you to take a look at the Cisco solution. We have a few different links here. You can go to signup.umbrella.com and avail of a free trial. I would encourage you to go to umbrella.cisco.com, not only to read more about our case studies, like I pointed out, there's a ton of great videos there off the learning content, but also just learn about our solutions and the white papers. And finally, reach out to someone and engage with them. And with that, I hope that you are Cisco secure.